actually, I remember now they were asking me like, have you managed different stakeholders? Like, have you ever done something where you've got people who have different, motivations, and you have to keep all of them happy? And my example was that I used to run MRI studies. Like, I would bring in somebody who we were going to do an experiment on, right? So they were going to be in the scanner for an hour, and they don't get paid very much. It's mostly voluntary. And then I have to get exactly the right data from the radiographer. And they need to get through the scan and get to the next scan. The patients coming in, they just are trying to help out, but they're tired, they're claustrophobic, whatever, maybe they don't want to go in the scanner. I have to negotiate this to get the best possible data. And that is like such a simple example, but that is like what I have to do, right?
Hello and welcome to Academic Misfits, another episode. Today I'm going to be talking with Dr. Michele Veldsman, who I guess live the academic dream of leaving academia and entering industry in pharmaceuticals. But I think, you'll find out that there's not always an escape plan that leads to a better work environment. And all of these systems have similar histories in the way that they were created and the way they run, and the people who are left behind or who are misfits within those systems continues to be the same, which, I'm realizing I'm saying that as things are happening in the world. But I want this academic misfit space to be a place of lightness. What do I want? What's the purpose for this? I've been exploring different music jingles that I could maybe have on the podcast. Really looking forward to that. But I really want this space to be a space of empowerment and providing a spark for people of whatever your what next is. And looking for this to be a place where, there's kind of a small little flashlight, beacon of light in the doubt and fog that is the academic space. And also, kind of shining a light on all the damaging messages that maybe we've absorbed throughout the years. And really, this is a poke at academia to improve things if they're serious about equality, diversity, and inclusion. I have my own thoughts about whether that's true. So this is a place for misfits to unite. So join me on this journey. I'm really happy to have you. I'm hearing from a lot of people, again, that this is a space where they get to escape in their own little way. If you want a little bit about my background, I faced a redundancy or layoff back in 2021, and I created my own journey as a business owner now, taking my own rebel playlist with me, and that matches my new path. And it's why one of the coaches that I spoke to was like, I think of you as a rated R academic, not letting redundancy stop me, resetting and reprioritizing what's important. So I encourage you to do the same thing for you, no matter what part of your journey you're in. There's always things to shed. This is the year of the snake. Shedding is important. Shed all those things that no longer matter, and start to prioritize yourself. Start to prioritize your community. I am finding that my community is a source of lightness for me in this dark time that I'm seeing in the world. And I hope that you have your community and your space where you feel loved and cared for. And even if your emotions are protected, that's an important space to be in. So let's get started.
Okay, so welcome, Michele. Michele Veldsman is joining us today on Academic Misfits. I'm really excited because this has been a long time coming. So I'd love for you to introduce people to yourself and who you are. And I have Playroom founder, but you're many more than that. And you're active on LinkedIn and everything like this. So tell us who you are. And let's get started.
Thank you. Yes, so I am many things. I was an academic. I'm a reformed academic. I did a PhD in cognitive neuroscience. I spent about 15 years in academia, and then I left academia to biotech, and then I left biotech to consulting, and I guess I'm starting my startup.
Yeah.
So now I have a kind of multi-title, bits and pieces of everything.
Yeah, and we met through Let's Fund More Women, right?
Yes, yeah,
Ah, I'm so glad that
yeah.
I went in there and started disrupting and starting shit.
I know, I love it. Awesome group of women. Really, really great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
All,
amazing.
yeah.
And so we had a conversation about both being academics, both being reform. I love your idea of reformed academics.
Yeah.
I love it. We're the reconstruction here.
We made it out alive and we're thriving.
I love it. And so, yeah, what brought you into academia? Let's get that kind of story of like what brought you in. Like, what was your purpose? Were you thinking, I want to stay in academia? Was there a kind of broader purpose behind it? Why cognitive neuroscience? You know, like what brought you into that space? Yeah, what's the background?
Yeah, I think so. It started with experimental psychology. That was my first degree. And then I remember going into like the third year and thinking, and I did experimental psychology because I'd been reading like Oliver Sacks and I'd been getting really interested in psychology and the brain. And during my degree, I was like, oh, the brain's the really interesting bit. And then, yeah, going into my third year of my degree, I remember we had this kind of discussion about what is next, like what careers are next. I hadn't really, to be honest, thought about it. It turned out a lot of psychology you had to do more studying to kind of, be any kind of psychologist. So that
Oh
was kind
yeah.
of place. I guess I
You
wasn't
can't
as
just stop at bachelor's.
yeah.
They were like, no,
They
you
just haven't like yeah.
unless you want to go into HR or something. I think that's what they told me
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so it was like, okay, you either study more to become some kind of practicing psychologist or yeah, you just go into the world of work. I had no idea what that meant. For a while, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do law. I don't even know where that came from. I think it was on the basis of like, what are jobs that people do? Lawyer, doctor.
What did your parents do? Like, did your parents, what were their jobs that you kind of, like, what was your mode of understanding the workspace?
Yeah, so funnily enough, my mum was in HR, so she was really interested. She was always interested in psychology, and like organizational psychology and
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
But didn't like study it for or anything. But my dad's a chemical engineer and very very academic and basically worked in R&D, like in labs, just testing things,
Yeah.
chemical things. So yeah, I think wasn't really, I don't know, it's kind of weird to think back. I was definitely not one of those people who was always going to be a professor or always going to be a scientist. I just was like, oh, this is interesting. I kind of like doing this. I left, and then my then boyfriend, who's now my husband, found a job in Singapore in a lab, in a sleep deprivation lab.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Sounds
I
interesting.
decided to go and do that. And that allowed me to actually run brain scans, like run an MRI scanner, learn about how to, scan, how to analyze brain scans, brain images, and how to, and just, get experience doing research.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so was that for a university or like how did that happen? Or did you get hired?
I got hired as a research assistant, and it was in Duke University's graduate medical school with Singapore National University. It was kind of like a joint institute associated with the hospital. My boss there was a neurologist doing all these sleep deprivation studies, and so that was like my first experience of proper like research and brain imaging research as well.
Yeah.
So from there, I enjoyed that, and I got to live in Singapore.
That's so cool. Yeah. How
Yeah,
long did
for
you live there
something
for?
I think about I think it was about a year and a half or 2 years in total.
Mm.
Um, then I came back and went to I actually came back for an internship at the University of Cambridge. Um, and then that was more like doing more research assistant type stuff.
Mm.
And then that led into a PhD. So it's kind of one of those like, okay, I like this, I'll keep doing this.
And then you were just kind of guided by what opportunities came up, or were you kind of like actively making networks in that time as well with Cambridge?
Then I definitely went through a period of like applying for PhD studentships because I was a research assistant. I was an intern, and then I got a research assistant job, and then PhD scholarships came up, so I had to like interview for those, you know, very very competitive scholarship, and at the same time interviewed at like UCL and other places. And then ended up, just because I really liked Cambridge and I liked where I was and I liked the person I was working with, I just sort of stayed there for my PhD. Yeah, and then from there, I went to after my I had a tiny little stint because my funding ran out after 3 years. So I had a little tiny stint in the Department of Energy and Climate Change, which
What?
no longer exists. Yeah. And I was modeling oil and gas in the UK.
Wow.
As
How'd that
yeah,
happen?
I know. I literally, my funding ran out. I was in year 4. My funding ran out in year 3. I hadn't written up. I had 7 months left to write up. And yeah, I needed to earn money. So I took this highest statistical officer job because I was like, well, I can do stats. So went and did this job in Whitehall, and it was absolutely insane. I used to wake up at like 7 o'clock, say, or whatever, to go to work for like a 9 to 5 type thing at the Department of Energy, and then I would clock off, go home and work through the night writing up my thesis, and then do the whole thing over again. So like hardly any sleep,
Oh,
and just
wow.
like full-time work plus full-time writing up this thesis, and planning my wedding and planning a move to Australia for my
Wow.
first postdoc. So
Wow. So
yeah,
what do you think you brought into that work? Like what was the knowledge or what was the transferable skills that you brought into it? I'm just
yeah,
like being a coach right now.
that was pure. I have fundamental understanding of statistics, and this is like that's all they need. And I think people really underestimate that transferable skill of like, I deal with big data, I clean up big data, I analyze it, and I can interpret the outcome. And even though it's oil and gas, it's just like whatever. I can work with Excel at the time. Oh, that was
Yes.
awful.
I heard, oh my God, can I just interrupt you? My friend who works in academia was like, the young people right now really hate Excel. Like that is their number one pet peeve. And I was
Yeah.
like, what are you kidding me? Like that got me so many jobs. And now you're saying that, Michelle. Like I'm just like, yes, Excel, can we just
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Actually, I have to say, I mean, I was an absolute Excel wizard, but I did actually kind of hate it because I had every day to open this spreadsheet that was like the levels of petrol in every single forecourt in the country, and so it was like 25,000 rows. So I'd have to open this bloody document and then leave and have coffee and wait for this thing to come to life, and then like try to manipulate it. So it was a bit of a
Wait,
it was
Cambridge didn't have like supercomputers or something? Come on.
oh no, sorry, that was at the Department of Energy.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. Oh no, Cambridge, we were all over the MATLAB and all over the yeah, it was all MATLAB back then.
But the government has really slow computers, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, the government, they were a little bit slower back then.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
amazing. So yeah, you were also then preparing to go to do your postdoc as well in Australia.
yeah, so my first postdoc was in Melbourne at the University of the Florey Institute of Neuroscience and Mental Health. And that was yeah, I moved there with my then husband. We got married just after I graduated my PhD, and moved to Melbourne, and lived there for about 2.5 years.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and that was a really great postdoc. And the only reason I left that, to be honest, was the distance, like being so far from family. It just
Yeah.
wasn't. But had that place, that person, been closer, I probably would have stayed in there longer. And
Yeah.
also, it's very different there because, academics get paid very well, or like they get paid what they deserve for their high levels of skill. So
Mm.
you actually, even as my first postdoc, I felt like I had a decent salary and a good standard of living.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely would have stayed if
And do you think that's the
that had been an option.
postdoc, or do you think like because I had the same experience going to Sweden for my postdoc. Like I was able to save money, which then I spent all getting a visa for the UK or several visas, right? They just kind of depleted with every single one of the things that you had to do on the all the ladder to get to your like citizenship in this country. But I was paid really well, and I wonder if that was just because it's a postdoc, and so they say we need like the best and brightest from all over the world, which of course
Okay.
to attract. I don't know if that's true of Australia as well, and I wonder if like the lecturer level once you get to that first stage, which I think in Australia is
Yeah.
similar to here, it's a lecturer rather than assistant professor in the U.S., isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that I wonder that you might be on something there. That
Mm.
maybe it's just the postdoc level.
But anyway, it was
Uh,
a good thing for you. Same for me, like a 2 year, of
yeah.
that. I really felt like this. I feel valued at this level, you know?
Yeah. Really did. Yeah. Yeah. It was really, and like I think generally a better work-life balance.
Mm.
And then maybe I guess there's always that thing about being in a different country where you're like, my weekends, I'm definitely going to go and see places.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in your home country, it's kind of like, yeah, well, maybe another week. I'll just work through this week and next week I'll go away.
Exactly. Or like when I was doing my PhD in Penn State, my mom was in New York, which is a 5 hour drive. So
Right.
sometimes I would do the 5 hour drive to see her, but it was like, or to go, home
Yeah.
basically for that
Yeah.
weekend. But it's a different thing when you're in another country. It's like it's all me time. It's all me
Yeah,
time to go
exactly. Yeah. I've got
explore.
to see things. I can't waste this opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
where did you go in I'm just like curious now. Did you get to explore many cities, or did you pretty much just like explore Melbourne or?
Yeah, quite a lot actually. And they had really great, like, as part of the institute, they had like really nice like retreats and things where they would go to like the Whitsundays Islands,
Mm.
and have like a retreat, academic retreat of like, everybody working on the same problem. And even to the point where you would go away for this weekend to a really nice little island, Great Barrier Reef right there. You would have a morning of activities like hiking, running, swimming. Then you'd have a whole day of kind of um, academic stuff. So, like, working through whatever problems or having lectures and panels, etc. And then more activity. It was really, really good. It just
Wow.
felt like really, yeah.
And was this in neuroscience, or like what kind of lab was it?
That was so that's kind of I'd say neurology, stroke neurology particularly. So it was a bunch of, which probably explains it. The stroke thing is a
Yeah.
bunch of people who are aware of the importance of like cardiovascular health. So they kind of work this into their day.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people at the institute are like standing desks and like walking meetings, and like it was really great.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And was it like, did you get a sense of in your time in academia and these different places, did you get a sense of like where funding goes to in terms of the issues that they are exploring as well? Not only that their ethos, you know, like we know about these things, but also our funding, you know, probably goes towards certain things and not towards other kinds of issues.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely varies. Yes. I think that, I mean, Singapore's a good example because they actually fund science very well. And so there's more resources for really good science. And it's kind of, I feel like it's appreciated more. And I mean, you know, the way that their system is kind of like their science ministers are scientists and their health ministers or doctors, and like, you know, things that make sense.
Yeah. When
Rather
we think of other political systems, yes.
Yeah. Not thinking of any particular cabinet meetings at the moment. So yes, definitely. I think it varies across the world and even across institutes, really. Sometimes it's just driven by the most senior people's interests, frank.
Yes. But yeah, there's definitely like, I mean, I was aware, maybe not directly, but, you know, passively of, because my training was in psychology as well as yours, Michele. And like, it had definitely I took biopsychology during my PhD, but I was more on the developmental, but I was kind of like, I mean, my ADHD was like, I want to learn about all of it. You know, I want biopsych, I want developmental, I want this, I want that. And then when I got to do my first lectureship, it was like, well, you know, the social psychology lecturer is leaving. Oh, the developmental psychology people are leaving. Who's staying? Neuroscience, right? And so I just would like naturally kind of curve, you know, and be like, I am more neuroscience now, and I will buy equipment that's more like, you know, cardiovascular psychophysiology. And, you know, I was kind of pushed to like, oh, you should do MRI stuff because we could get more money, right? And it just seemed like, oh, okay, that's where the money flows from. And I found that really interesting. I don't know if that's been your experience as well.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of, you just don't do any research without MRI scans because that's going to up your grant immediately. It's like the fastest way to get a bigger grant. And then that used to really frustrate me as well because it would very often just be tagged onto stuff for the sake of it. And then also the multimodal, like there would be so many data types acquired. It was like, just chuck everything in there.
Yes.
Like, is that going to analyze it? Like, does it make any sense?
Yeah, we put
like, no, just chuck it all in there.
We put eye tracking on top of shit all the time. Put the eye tracking in. Yeah, people love the eye tracking. Can we put some VR? Does anybody have VR?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I could get surgery in there, if we could implant something, then we're really talking.
Oh gosh. Are we talking Neuralink now?
Hopefully not.
I find that fascinating. It's just like the politics of science as well, which I thought was really interesting. But those were messages that I was getting at the time, and I at the same time that I was going, oh, stats sell, right? If I'm willing to teach stats at any level, people want to hire me, right? If I'm doing a little neuroscience, people want to keep me in. So what happened after your postdoc?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I consciously or not did that actually, that I realized quite early that stats and brain imaging and imaging, like being able to take a big data set of images and analyze them and do statistical models and do multimodal things was like really attractive. Like everybody needed that because everybody was acquiring MRI for no reason.
Tons of data.
So actually I developed that pretty early, actually, now that I think about it. After my internship, my first research assistant job before my PhD was with the head physicist, who was very research active. So everything was like imaging based. And so I think that started my set of skills. So my first postdoc ended up being imaging analysis in stroke patients, longitudinal acquired images. In this case, I think it was well acquired because, this is something actually happening in the brain.
Yeah.
So it's worth actually seeing it. I mean, everything's happening in the brain, but
has a worthwhile like aspect to it, rather than like my partner is teaching cognitive psychology, and he asked his students, like undergrads, how would we determine somebody's mood? And they were like, let's scan their brains. And it's, maybe like ask them. But yeah, that seems worthwhile, your situation.
Exactly. So from there we went to hang on, where were we? So from Melbourne to Oxford.
Yes.
So I went to a wedding. I came back from Melbourne for a wedding, and my friend was getting married. She's from Oxford, and I went into the Oxford kind of college centre area and just was like, I really miss universities. I really miss the old school universities.
The red brick.
Sorry?
The red bricks.
That kind of, I don't know, there was something about it that I was like, oh, maybe I want to, I guess because I did my PhD in Cambridge, they're so similar. I was like, oh, I really want to come back to this. So then started to look for, and we wanted to come back to the UK anyway, because it was just too much being so far away. So I found a postdoc in Oxford, stayed in that one, had my first child, and then moved to another lab in Oxford, and then from there I exited.
And did you? I mean, was it a kind of misfit with academia that you left, or you just kind of was like, I'm done, I've gotten everything I want out of this?
I think it was definitely a misfit in that I didn't really even know. I'd always been frustrated. I'd always been frustrated with aspects of it. Like one of the big things for me was that I spent a long time in like DEI, and like on every committee and every institute, I was always really active there. And then my last department, we had 5 or 6 consecutive hires were all white men.
Oh my God.
And I was like, And I was like, how can this be the case? Like, how can this be? And I was in this department where I knew of people who were exceptional, and yet they were bringing people inside rather than hiring, rather than promoting. Bringing people in, and those people were all one demographic. And I was like, how can this be the case? There are people who've been here for 7 years and are exceptional.
And would thrive in that position.
They are made to be here. And I was like, those people look like me. So I'm going to be overlooked for the rest of my life.
God.
I thought, this is maybe not for me. And then the other aspect was that I actually did a career development workshop called Rising Wise. And this was run by women for women in STEM across Oxford and Cambridge. And that made me think, hang on, maybe I wasn't actually supposed to be an academic all along.
How come?
It's the first time I'd kind of one of the first things they do is get you to just write down what you're passionate about, what your values are, and like what you really love and want out of life. And I was like, I don't think I've ever actually done this.
Right?
And then
And how old were you? Like, how old were you?
Oh my God, I must have been 30. Like mid to late 30s already.
I remember when somebody asked me what my values were, I was like, do you mean like whether I want to be a professor or not? She was like, no, like what do you, I was like, what does that mean? And it took me forever. And I think I was like 40 something.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I should have checked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really eye-opening for me because I was like, hang on, there is actually a disconnect here, because one of the things that I really valued in academia is like, here I am surrounded by people who are really smart, like generally quite liberal, and we have shared values. But at the same time, I'm like, well, hang on, how can you have that, but then have six consecutive hires with not even a scrap of diversity? So this is even worse, actually, because you are supposed to be smart people, and so you should know better.
Yes.
And so that was kind of like, maybe my values aren't aligned here. And then there's all kinds of things like, the kind of, what are they called? The incentives in academia are all completely messed up. And, it's just like simple things like absolutely love to collaborate, but that kind of gets made increasingly difficult because it's such a like, it seems like it's a zero-sum game, and like, you just you can't just like work on something together because it's who's going to be first author, who's going to pay for this, it's like, well, I just want to get the best people to solve this problem.
Yes.
And that just doesn't work.
I found that so completely frustrating because I was at Durham. Somebody I was collaborating with a lot was at Liverpool. And I was like, I kind of, and Liverpool just as like it just had shared more of my culture than Durham, Durham's quite just white. So I was like, oh, I really want to be in Liverpool and I want to work with her. So this is like a win-win. We will be in the same city. We'll be able to talk like every day and really collaborate and get a team together. And another person who I used to work with at Durham, at UCLan, she came down to Liverpool as well. And we were like, wow, we are a powerhouse of women. Like, we're going to do all these projects together. And then they were like, yeah, but who's leading on the project? We're like, no. We're like 33.333% each. And they're like, no, you need a PI. Oh, okay. And then they were like, but who's first author? Oh, well, we like trade first authors. And then they were like, well, but in terms of a ref paper, we're really going to need you to collaborate with people external. And so it was like, they wanted us to collaborate had I been in Durham, but not while I was in the same university. And I was like, this is not why I moved here.
It takes absolutely all the joy out of actually trying to work with people.
We're working together now, you know what I mean? Like, because now I'm an external and I'm a small to medium enterprise now, I'm one of those SMEs that the university now wants to work with. And it's like, what are we even talking about here? And we just got a grant today. Actually.
Oh, congrats. Amazing.
But no, I totally empathize with what you're saying. Best science is collaborative. The best, even let's fund more women. We, as a collective, we're able to do so much more, isn't it?
Yes, very much more. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, the current incentives at all. Like, and with publishing, it was always really frustrating that you just can't, the incentives are totally messed up. And they didn't seem to be getting any better. Like, there were pushes and small things moving, but the fundamental metrics, I guess, that you were measured on for just like being able to have a full-time job.
Yeah.
Slightly ridiculous.
Like, what metrics would you want to use, or what do you use now, like in terms of your satisfaction with where you are now? What are your big metrics?
Oh gosh, that is a very good question. They're definitely not paper counts anymore.
I know. I love that I can just leave that behind and I don't actually care. My boyfriend's a white man, right? And he's like, he's in academia. He's doing really well. He's like, oh, it's so easy to just like move in this space. I was like, that's great. He's like, they just bought me some equipment. I didn't even ask for it. I'm like, what the heck? But he was like, I was like, applying for jobs when I was leaving academia, and he was like, I was like, oh yeah, so I'm supposed to quantify everything. Okay, so how many papers, how many blogs, like, because it actually doesn't matter now whether it's a, published, peer reviewed, blah blah blah. Now I can just say how many things are out there that I've produced, how much writing have I done, and he was like 100 plus, and I was like, but I haven't actually counted it. He's like, I would put 100 plus. And I was like, can I just do that without actually like count? Is that what you do? Is that what men do? Like they just go 100 plus easily. Yeah, that's how good I am. 100 plus.
I love that. Oh, brilliant.
Whole new world. Like brain just went. That's how it works. You just make it up.
Yeah, what do you want my metrics to be? I have those metrics. Basically, that's how it works.
That's how it works. Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing. But yeah, I'm redoing like my metrics now because, did I start my business to like double my salary from academia? No.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, because you've created a space, a community for, so like, tell us what you're doing now. I think we're like skipping through it, but.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I guess like, well, let's start, because I think a lot of people, when they leave academia, a lot of people are sold, whether it's sold like with money or, because there's a lot of coaching programs out there that are like, oh, are you in STEM? We will double your salary outside of academia. And the big thing is like going into pharmaceuticals or biotech or, like, so I think a lot of people would be like, the metric of success, Michele, was like entering biotech or, how did you find that transition?
That's okay. That's interesting. So that, so I moved, so I guess my first official move, I did start consulting while I was an academic. And so that was kind of a nice introduction to the fact that I could use my skills in consulting, but not in that kind of McKinsey way, but more in a like, you're really interested in aspects of psychology or neuroscience or statistics, and I can give you those skills in context. So I really like that because I was like, wow, this is kind of fun because it's changing all the time. And I really like working with people. And then from there, I moved to biotech. Again, that was kind of like biotech light because I mean, I joined an R&D department. So I was director of neuroscience. And my boss was a PhD, both like basically everyone in our team were ex-academics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So they kind of understood where you were coming from in terms of like, because I bet people in the like audience listening are going to be like, well, how did you get that role? You know what I mean? And I guess like, did you apply for it or did you kind of already know, or people went like, hey, this organization would be great for you because there's already people who kind of understand the value of your skills?
Yeah. So I kind of networked my way into that role. I was part of a group of people called the Demon Network, and they were a network of researchers using AI in dementia research. They were giving a kind of overview of everything that they were researching and what they'd found. We'd like written papers about the state of AI in dementia research. I presented one of those, and so there were industry people there. So it was basically a kind of networking drinks. I heard somebody saying that they were from Cambridge Cognition, and I was like, having in mind that I'm interested in things outside of academia, I went to go and talk to him, and we just started talking about things that I was working on and just generally like cognition, fatigue, all of that sort of things. The chief scientific officer was also there. I spoke to her. And then I was like, look, I'm really looking for positions outside of academia now. So if you have anything. And they were like, oh, we might do. Are you serious? And I was like, yeah, definitely.
Oh, wow.
They had an open position advertised at the time but they thought that I was too junior for that. Which is an interesting thing, because a lot of the time people are like, oh, well, you're going to have to leave your PhD and go into the most junior position. But in fact, they felt like I should be at the director level.
Yeah. Well, you'd done 2 postdocs already, or 3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So then we had a couple of chats. I had some interviews. I interviewed with the CEO and the COO and all the C's.
CFO.
CFO, CTO.
Did they
CPO.
Did they also appreciate your like traveling, or was that did that not come into it?
Yeah, I think
like being international.
Yes, they definitely did, because part of it is always having a wide network of people, and so that definitely helps. I think those are the things that actually put me at that more director level. Is I've got like a wide academic network. I've got a lot of experience kind of traveling and chairing things and all kinds of things. And yeah, so that led me to Cambridge Cognition I was there for just I think about a year and a half. They had a series of redundancies. I escaped 2 rounds.
Wow.
But the second round, a lot of our team were made redundant. I wasn't. I was one of the only ones. And at that point, I thought, this is probably my time to go, because I didn't, I was told quite often that I had a lot of potential in the company. I could go very far, and I didn't want to. I really felt like I actually don't want to go far in this company.
Was there anything that like didn't fit for you in that company, or you wanted to just do more, or?
Yeah, there were a couple of culture things. The R&D team were great. Absolutely loved them. These were all former academics. We basically just had like lab meetings. So we would discuss findings, we would present experiments that we'd done. We would just do science. But then like the broader culture, I didn't love. It was a lot of like secrecy at the highest levels. Our first round of redundancies were brutal.
Like communication wise, or?
Yeah, literally, like, guys, there's an extra company-wide meeting this afternoon. We all log in. Slide just says there, company reduction in headcount. Absolutely no one had any idea. So we go into this meeting going, what?
Oh God,
like,
that's horrible.
Yeah. And they just dealt with that really badly. And then a year later, they did it again. And then, of course, in that period in the middle, you just feel so insecure, because you're like, this could happen at any point.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to know?
It makes people just not like just check out, really, like mentally. Yeah. It's horrible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I never, and part of it was the fact that I had sort of started Playroom, which is my startup, and I had always thought of it as, this is where I want to end up. And so I never had ambitions to be in any company for a really long time. And so it made sense. Like, it was that kind of point where it's like, okay, you stay here, but your entire team is gone. So you're going to be doing everybody's work. And yes, you've got loads of potential, but that could be like, is that the potential you want to fulfill? Like,
somebody's whim.
Yeah. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just, now is the time to get out. So I just used that opportunity to go it alone.
Yeah. So was that scary, like, to just go it alone, or did you have had you made plans for that in terms of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do to put in the capacity building to make this happen?
Yes, exactly that. So I had set up a consultancy contract that was large enough that it would allow me to find more contracts. and then I had enough kind of like savings that I could explore being going it alone. And so it was really scary, but it was, I think, the right decision. Who knows? But yeah, it felt like, okay, I'm just gonna have to do it, or else it's never gonna happen. Because it's such a leap to take. I mean, you know, I could have been made redundant the next round, so who knows? But
That's the thing, is like I hear a lot from academics being like, but I feel safer here. And it's like, but you know, people have been made redundant. You know that layoffs have been happening. You know that, you know what I mean? And it's like, there's something about, I don't know, the free, you know, we're both psychologists, right? But the freeze, you know what I mean? That you're just like,
yeah.
if I stay here, maybe no one will look at me, you know, or like, yeah. I don't know what your estimation of that is, but I just see a lot of people who are kind of frozen and stuck, you know, and thinking, if I just stay here, even though they have a big dream to do something huge and really important in the world and socially meaningful.
It's so much just, it's uncertainty and like not knowing what else is out there, I think, is a huge deal. That was one of the biggest things that kept me in academia as long as it did, was that like I literally would think to myself, I cannot name another job that I could do. Like, what would it be? I have no idea. Like, what do people do if they're not academics? Like, I knew people worked in companies and stuff, but you know, I obviously knew about like corporate jobs and things, but it's like I didn't really know how you ended up becoming like senior vice president of, I don't know, external stakeholder management. Like, I was just like, how do you become that thing?
Yeah, I think I saw one job was like partnerships builder or manager or something, and I was like, partnerships. I like making partners. I like meeting people. Is that okay? But had no idea.
Yeah, exactly. So that's part of the battle, right? And then actually that career development event I went to, where they had asked, you know, you had to put your passions and your values down and things. They actually had a lot of people come in from like completely different organizations that, you know, were doing really good things in the world. And I was just like, oh yeah, hadn't really occurred to me that it's not just like corporate jobs anymore. Like, there's a whole bunch of organizations, whether they're not profit or for profit, but are doing different things in the world that more closely align with my values than academia, which I thought aligned with my values. But in practice, actually, there's quite a dissonance there. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And I think like I want to like underline what you just said for the audience about like there are private organizations or like for-profit organizations, corporations who are doing good work. And a lot of times you really need to look at what their business model is and how they were created to really get a sense of, does this match my values? Because I've been talking to a couple of people, you know, who are like, I just want to work in a nonprofit because I want to do good work. And it's, but like, you know, they're relying on government grants and, you know, given the situation in some countries that are maybe going more towards right wing, those funding streams aren't coming in. And so, you know, that I think what I'm hearing from you is I know what that is because of their branding, you know, because of their business model or their branding, because the branding sometimes doesn't match what actually happens on the ground. And like you said, there are good people there. I had an amazing team in academia. Absolutely love my team. If we could like start our own university, we would be amazing without those higher ups that were, you know, thinking downsizing was going to whatever, you know, restructuring this and that. So I think what you said, I want to just like, highlight that. But what was your kernel of idea for Playroom and your first contracts?
So off the back of this career development event I did, career development program I did, Rising Wise, I started to think more about entrepreneurship because I realized that academia is kind of entrepreneurship because you're basically self-employed, right?
Yeah.
And you love, like a lot of academics, the thing that they love the most is solving problems, like just figuring out what the problem is and then trying to find a solution to it. And I love doing that. Like we had a running joke in my house about like all of the things, all of the companies I was starting, because I would just have an idea for something and be like, I'm going to start a new company. It's going to be this thing. And I realized that, yeah, it's kind of something that I've always liked to do. My dad has like hundreds of patents because a lot of his job was like creating new technologies. So I kind of think it's like in the family that we have this like, and my brother's actually a entrepreneur as well. He has a startup, well, more of a company now than a startup. But anyway, I started getting really interested in just kind of, could I create something myself? And then Playroom came about because I felt like when you have kids, it's really isolating. It can be quite lonely. You don't like have the support networks that you had before because you're kind of like, your friends might be at different stages, different places in the country, if they're even in the same country. And so you're trying to work as well, trying to manage that, I found really difficult. I just wanted a way to make it really easy for parents to connect to each other, like around the early years setting. So if your kids go to nursery, just to make it really easy for the parents in that nursery to meet each other and to be able to organize play dates and, just form a community in your area, around your children. And then I just felt like there was this huge gap where like no technology had really been made to really facilitate that. Like, people feel lonely as parents and they go online and they go onto like Instagram or TikTok and they kind of they see other people's perfect parenting lives.
Yeah.
That just makes them feel a little bit more isolated. They're connecting to strangers, not to people who they can have real community with. And so I really just wanted to change that.
Yeah.
And then as part of that, I felt like in those important years, well, you'll know this from developmental neuroscience, but those really important years, those like first 5 years, you're not really given much support or told like how to raise the kids, really. It's like you get some pregnancy support if you're lucky, but then when your kids are like developing, it's just like, good luck.
I remember when I left the hospital with like the baby in Sweden, and I was like, am I just allowed to just like walk out with this human?
Yeah. Is anyone going to check that I'm doing this right? Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I felt like, so I started kind of giving parents a bit more support in that area as well, and telling them about kind of more neuroscience and science-backed parenting advice, because there's so much information out there now. So I'm working on that now, and then to bootstrap that, I consult. I met an amazing woman through Women in Innovation.
Oh, cool.
So it actually was slightly before Let's Fund Women came together. Let's Fund More Women. There was a webinar about the grant. When you go to the webinar. Yeah,
I've met people through that. I love it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we met through that. And then we had a kind of virtual coffee, and we said, I was consulting, she was consulting. She comes from government and was a senior economic advisor. And so we thought our combination of skills would be really great for consulting. So we started putting in bids together as like a partnership, and we got 2 for 2.
Wow.
And we got a third one that's still under under evaluation, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we decided, okay, we're just going to consult together, and it's been so great. Like,
So what are you still bringing your stats into that, or like what's your?
Yeah. So all sorts of things, like we're doing some work on mental health funding, and we're doing some work on like tech and AI. And so she brings the kind of economic side of things. I bring like decision-making neuroscience side of things, and whatever other experience I have. And we work so well together. We both have small kids. So like there's an understanding that she will email me at like midnight just because she's awake, because she's feeding her baby. And I'm like, that is fine. We will have meetings after the school run, and it's like works so well.
That's amazing. And it's like the collaboration that you have been like craving for years.
Oh my God, absolutely. It's exactly that. Like we've got some really interesting bids where we're like, okay, we actually need like design expertise. So then we go and find like an awesome designer, and it's like, it's perfect. It's really, really, really good.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
And you have like multiple things that you kind of have, because it sounded like you liked the different projects, like, oh, maybe I'll go to Australia and do this, and then work in this lab, and then work in this other lab, and maybe like a little gas thing that you did for a little while. Little energy thing.
I'm not going back to gas and oil, I think that's not going to happen. We don't even have a Department of Energy and Climate Change anymore. So.
But yeah, having those like challenging problems that you get to solve with these different bids.
Yes, it's really great. And actually a lot of my experience, because somebody asked me the other day, is it like a downside that I've got so much postdoc experience and like I'm a scientist, not a consultant? And I was like, absolutely not. It's always been an advantage. Like people are quite impressed actually that I have so much academic kind of rigor. I think it's a real myth that it's like works against you, because I really don't think it does. I think if it's presented correctly and it's and you're proud enough of it, I think it's and you get how valuable and how many skills you have, then it can definitely work in your favor.
Can you give an example of like something that you presented recently that you were like, oh, I just had to present it that way, and they saw that this was actually a boon?
But yes, I can. I think one of the key things though is getting that experience like around academia as well. Like it's not just about writing papers. It's the sitting on the committees, on the boards, the organizing, the dealing with money. They're like, it is those things that are going to give you the kind of more obviously commercializable experience. But fundamentally, the ability to see a problem and analyze that problem and really sketch that problem out and understand it, and then find solutions is incredibly valuable. And people really take for granted that those are the things that you need to like do a PhD or to write a paper. Like project management is so natural to me, because for years it was like, I'm going to run a study, I have to like interact with all these people, I have to actually, I remember now in my first interview for the Department of Energy and Climate Change, they were asking me like, what have you managed different stakeholders? Like, have you ever done something where you've got people who have different motivations, and you have to keep all of them happy? And my example was that I used to run MRI studies. Like I would bring in somebody who we were going to do an experiment on, right? So they were going to be in the scanner for an hour, and they don't get paid very much. It's mostly voluntary. And then I have to get exactly the right data from the radiographer. and they need to get through the scan and get to the next scan. The patients coming in, they just are trying to help out, but they're tired, they're claustrophobic, whatever, maybe they don't want to go in the scanner. I have to negotiate this to get the best possible data. And that is like such a simple example, but that is like what I have to do, right? And that's what other jobs are. You've got to keep everybody happy. You've got to think ahead. Okay, I need to make sure that, if this person cancels, I'm not going to waste this person's time, or that I have a backup, that I've got things in place to mitigate this problem. Like all of those things are just what you're doing. It's just that people have like put fancy words around it.
I'm even thinking back to the time when I was 19. I worked at in the Ticketmaster part of Tower Records, because you have scalpers that you need to keep, kind of happy, but like you know where they're coming from, right? You know where the scalpers are coming from. They're not giving me money. I'm not taking that. But and then you got the people who just, they're fans. They're fans of the band, and they just want like really nice tickets, but they don't want to spend a bunch of money. I knew how to do all the not back end stuff, but like how to search for like good tickets that were cheap, that it wouldn't come up automatically, because I knew how to work the system. And then I've got my boss going, well, there's also somebody that wants to buy the new like Beatles White Album, whatever, and then there's like and then you've also got to be looking at the people on the floor, making sure that they're not stealing crap, and you're like
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Different motivation.
All of these different, there you go.
I'm all for like a working class example of how I have these leadership skills.
I love it. I even love this. There's a few people I've seen now who have their LinkedIn profiles have like a whole section on motherhood, because it's like, you try and manage this kind of level of mental load and project management and like keeping a person alive and not screwing them up for life. It's actually quite difficult. It's like the hardest thing that most people do.
Somebody congratulated me for keeping my child alive, because they're going to be 18 in 2 months' time. And they're like, that is a day to celebrate. Like, you kept them. That was the date, right? That's when you were supposed to keep them alive till. Washing my hands.
I'm done.
You're so right.
It's more like 30 these days, isn't it?
Probably, yeah. The reality is, I know I'm not done.
They keep coming back now because no one can afford anything anymore. So everyone just goes back to live at home, and like they don't leave till they're like 35.
Exactly. But I was like 18, and I can pay you how much per year to help me run my business without paying national insurance? Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
Excellent. And it's not child labor.
In 2 months' time, I've got it all. No, I think you're like, I really love the way that you put it so practically, that, these skills that we have, of like negotiation, influence, decision making, critical thinking, analytical skills. Absolutely love that clear example of that. I think that's great. So is that what you used when you were in that interview? Like, are you actually like going, this is what Michele in the past actually used?
Yeah, I literally used that. That was my first ever like real job interview. Apart from like, the kind of when I was younger and worked in kind of retail and things and bars and things. But that was the example I used, and I got that job. So
that's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah. It is how you present it.
It is. It definitely is. Even for jobs now, I think all of my, for my job in biotech, I had just spent 15 years in academia, and I had never done that sort of role before. But I mean, partly it is, I think, because those were former academics, they do know how valuable and how many skills you get as a PhD and as an academic. So that helps certainly. But that whole interview and that whole application was off the basis of just having academic skills. So I think it really is so much about how you present it.
Oh, but Michele, did you get any translatable skills in terms of your DEI work or your equality, diversity, inclusion work?
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Yes, I've used that as an example in an interview for a pitch. I also, one of the recent bids that we put in was for a very large contract to do a full audit of DEI practices in a very large organization. And so there you go. And that stuff would never have got me any bonus points in academia.
Oh, no.
Right? Ever.
I did so many of them and sometimes didn't even get paid.
Yeah, no, never ever got paid. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that now we've got 2 bids that we're going for specifically in that area, and because actually just got a load of experience from doing it. So definitely, and it's a good stakeholder one actually, because there is nothing more difficult than trying to convince people about the value of diversity, even though it is clear in all quantitative statistical metrics you want to use.
Even their metrics.
Yeah.
Even their coveted metrics of productivity, income, like the money generated, wealth and everything, revenue.
Yeah. You will still have to argue with the person who's going to say, "Well, just look, here's my bag. This is what people always say. Just back the best people."
Yes.
No one's saying not to back the best people, are they? No.
No, that's amazing.
They're just saying you're not doing that by virtue of having absolutely no diversity in your organization.
That's amazing. No, I love that. And I mean, but you did more committee work than the EDI, and like, because I was like, I was in I did some work with a society, right? A scientific society, a national society. Okay. So like event planning, all that kind of stuff, right? And I tell people, that's one of the first things I ask people is like, what kind of administrative roles have you had? Because there's always juicy things in the admin, in the those roles. So I think you're totally right.
Definitely, yes. So I was on the Organization for Human Brain Mapping. I was on their council. And I worked in their organization for years as like a student and postdoc, and then moved my way up into like the council level. And there it was like, all about, here's a international organization with 5,000 members across the world, not for profit, have to seek funding. So, you have to try and get money in, essentially. You've got a whole bunch of different people at all kinds of levels of seniority. You've got all of these constraints, right? So if you want to put on an international conference, you've got to think about where everyone's coming from, how inclusive it is, the climate impact, all of those things, and then negotiate prices, and try to keep everybody happy, and then try to put on a good event and have some impact metrics. All of that stuff is like bread and butter for so many jobs.
That's amazing.
And it's literally just thinking about those things. In those contexts.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people will get a lot out of this episode just from that. All the elements that you talked about of what you gain when you talk about the problem solving that leads to practical outcomes that you can show somebody, in those ways. And when you don't, like the MRI or the, working at Tower Records or whatever it is, there's something to kind of glean with confidence. I think you said, when you deliver it with confidence that what you have to offer is valuable. And so anything that boosts that confidence is a good thing as well, right? So
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What are your big confidence boosters? Do you have a song that boosts your confidence, or I'm just like kind of segueing into the next or other things, I mean, give people tips on your confidence boosters.
Oh, that's a good question. What are my confidence boosters? I think I think one of my like skills is that, and I think this is an academic skill, knowing when to find expertise, like knowing the limits of my expertise, right? I think that's a really good skill. And they kind of discourage it for all the reasons we said, with collaboration. But fundamentally, if I'm writing a paper on like genetics of like some, I don't know, Alzheimer's disease, I don't know enough about genetics. So I have to go and find somebody who does. And I think that's a really important and underrated skill.
Amazing.
And so that gives me confidence, like the ability to just work well with people and like find the expertise that I need so that we can like do stuff really good together.
I love that. And do you have a song to share with everyone? What's on your playlist?
Oh my God, I've got Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance on absolute repeat over and over and over again. I'm absolutely obsessed.
What do you love about it?
Oh, so good. It's just, I love everything about it. I just love it. I love the fact that it was like, it's just at a time when it just gave me kind of hope that like here at this huge platform, there was someone who was just gonna be like, yeah, I'm calling the shit out. I just love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is my time. Yeah. I'm doing this here.
Yeah, I know. I love it. It was just, there was so many little bits to it. I mean, I love language anyway. So I just kept putting it on repeat just so I could get all those tiny little nuggets. It's just so good.
Do you dance to it as well, or?
I don't. I haven't done the dance. I don't. I just done a little bit around the house, but that's about it.
I kind of want to learn all the dancing whenever I see anybody.
I've seen like TikToks of people like doing it around the shops and stuff. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your joy and telling people about Playroom. I mean, where can people find you if they want to find more of you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. People reach out to me a lot from academia when they want to kind of know how I left and have lots of questions, and I'm always open for that. And I think that's a good thing generally for people to just reach out to people. It's amazing how generous a lot of people are with their time. Sometimes they don't get back to you. That's usually the worst that will ever happen. So just don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, we love community and collaboration, so reach out to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for being on here. This has been an amazing discussion with you.
Yes, thank you for having me.